Alright guys, my name is Buzzelli, and I'm going to talk about rebel reporting. So a little preface of what that actually is I've pulled this quote, and if you can see it, journalism is printing what someone else does not want printed. Everything else is public relations. So why I picked this topic is something that was really, really important to me. And I've worked my entire 4 years for the Century, the campus newspaper, and I've learned a lot about that. And we've faced some challenges, had some good times, had some rough times, but it actually opened my eyes to something that I was kind of missing my previous 3 years reporting, and it kind of didn't allow me to be the best reporter that I can. So, a little background, like I said, I've worked for the Post-Gazette, doing stringing work there, freelance work at WPXI with the Century, and what I've learned, everything I've come, has been in the college newspaper. Yeah, it's great to get professional experience out there, but the great thing about working with the college newspaper is you get hands-on experience. You get to get your feet wet, roll up your sleeves, and get to work, and that's really helpful. And I think it's kind of what inspired me, because my freshman, sophomore, and junior year here, I would, there'd be news happening, and I would kind of neglect to report about it because I was afraid what other people would think. I was afraid of speaking my mind. Maybe someone would disagree with it, and I really didn't want conflict. And that's something that I've learned after doing this thesis, because there's an instance last semester where there's kind of like a little athletic scandal, and I wanted to report about it, but I just was unable to get the information I was kind of afraid to. I was afraid of what would happen if I reported that. Would I get blacklisted from covering RMU athletic games? And I was a sports reporter, so I had a lot to lose there. And that kind of said, I was like, hey, why don't I actually look into this, see what can be done about it? So that kind of inspired me, and same for this year, I was kind of still a little hesitant, and as I would work on my thesis, I would say to myself, like, hey, I'm not really practicing what I'm preaching here. What can I do differently? And it actually only changed about a week ago is when I actually started to do what I like to say real journalism, and I will get to that in just 1 second. So like I said, a little background on what I'm going to be talking about is how important the First Amendment is to student journalists, and how many people, there's 5 freedoms with the First Amendment, how many people can name all 5? Anyone know any? Just name off the top of your head if you can. Freedom of speech.
Speech, press, assembly, religion, petition.
Yep. So why this is so important is a lot of times all you hear about in the media is freedom of speech, freedom of speech. And journalists kind of deal with a little both saying, because freedom of speech, anyone can say what they want, but it's also, they neglect to forget about freedom of the press. It's something that in the professional industry doesn't really hamper a lot, because yeah, there's been cases of government censorship, things like that, but for the most part, if you're like Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the Tribune Review, you can publish what you want without doing what I like to call fair journalism, without fearing repercussions of saying someone coming in and pulling that plug. So that kind of ties in with the role of the student journalist. And what I mean by that is student journalists serve a big role on campus. And if you look at it, without a student journalist, who knows what can happen? Who knows what can go on? They're meant to serve as a watchdog for the campus, basically uncover anything, let voices be heard, and just get people to talk. And there's been problems that can occur when you seek the truth. You might make someone mad. You might get blacklisted from Circumventing. You might, you make enemies, is what I like to call it. But you kind of have to learn to deal with this, because if you want to be a fair reporter, if you want to do your just job, you have to learn how to make people mad but get over it. You have to have a short memory. And what I found is there is ways to combat these issues. Granted, public versus private universities are a little bit different, and that's what I will get into right now. So in order to do some research about what you can, what you can and cannot say in a college newspaper for a public or private university, I had to look at the court cases. And I picked out 4 that I felt most exemplified them. I'm not going to get into the details of all of them, but basically everyone, Tinker Des Moines is a fairly common one. It happened in 1961 in Iowa with freedom of speech in a high school. And what I found during my research is that every court case is kind of built off that. That was like the main central one. And it would kind of be like, okay, So you're allowed to wear an armband, you're allowed to have freedom of speech in a school, but it depends. If it's public school, here's what you can say, here's what you can't say. And everything kind of built on that. The landmark case, even though it was with high schools, was Hazelwood versus Kumeyer, which happened in 1988. And that basically said that what you can't say is if you're a private university, if you're a private school, because it was a high school, the administration, if it's disrupting the educational setting, can censor it. And Hosie versus Carter, which happened in 2002, built off that. It was in a college. So I had all this information. I realized that every court case basically contradicted itself. There was no clear-cut example. And I kind of asked myself, I'm like, all right, is the role of the student journalists, are they to serve as a watchdog and kind of serve over everyone and expose things? Were they just a PR tool for the university? And are public and private universities treated the same? And what I kind of figured out is it all depends. Private universities like Robert Morris face a bit of a challenge because you're limited in what you can say. Because if you're a public university, information is out there, records are public. It's a little bit different with private universities because public universities are state funded, run by the state educational system, and that way they can get funding. And if they refuse to give out records, lose their funding, and that can kind of hurt them. So they could do it if they wanted to, but it would be it wouldn't be good for them. So what I found out by doing research, it kind of helped a lot of personal experience, is if you're on a private campus, being an independent student media is by far the way to go. And what I mean by that is if you're independent, then you are not funded by the school. So say you wrote an article that an administrator didn't like, if the school's giving you funding, they can say, take that article, we're going to pull your funding. So if that happens, what happens to the school newspaper is wiped out. So that is the big one. You face challenges though because you kind of have to fund yourself. So you have to be like, okay, let's sell advertising. Let's come up with ways to fund ourselves. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword there. You get to print, you can do real journalism, you get to print what you want, but you kind of also have to sustain yourself and do more of the management side, ad revenue, sell ads, and just sustain yourself. So the alternative, say you can't be an independent student media on a private campus for whatever reason. The alternatives, while there are a lot you can do, there are some. Now a lot of schools, if they are funded by the university, they can pull what they want. And an example that I found is Western Michigan University has a $5 activity fee. So every student pays $5, goes to the school newspaper. Western Michigan is a public school, but then that kind of gets into a gray area where if the students are technically paying for the newspaper, if someone writes something that someone else doesn't want, can they pull it? What can they do? Can they try to fight it? So you kind of get into a gray area there, and that goes back with the curriculum-based versus extracurricular. If it's curriculum-based, then if you're writing it for a class, chances are you're not going to want to do investigative reporting that looks bad on the university because the class you want to use as a PR tool. So what I found, a big case is just have good relationships with the college administrators. What I mean by that is if you go to do a story, okay, and granted you're privately funded and the university funds you, but if you go to do a story and you're really close with, say, a dean, a professor, or whoever, then they're less likely to actually want to pull the funding from you if they have a good relationship with you. And by doing that, it's all based on the beat system. So if you have a reporter and you say, okay, this is going to be the basketball reporter, this is going to be the student life reporter, you can kind of do more investigative reporting and get things out of the way like that. And that just goes with inside sources and having people, if you hear something, the benefits of a college campus is if you hear something, you can investigate, you can look into it and research it more, and you're around all your peers, and that's kind of an advantage where professional journalists, if they want to report on a college, they don't have that kind of skill set because they're not 18 to 24-year-olds. So in conclusion, the court cases, it's still a gray area. There's really no clear-cut example, but like I said, there's a big risk, big reward. If you actively seek the truth, good things are going to happen. You just have to be creative in the ways you do that.